As it states in Zechariah 1:1, in the 8th month, in the 2nd year of Darius, came the word of the Lord unto Zechariah, the son of Berechiah. This book, the New Testament, is so erroneous.
AnsweringGenesis.org has an interesting answer to this objection, and this is what he says. Quote, study Bibles often provide verses for the purpose of cross-referencing passages. In this case, Bibles link Matthew 23 to 35 and 2 Chronicles 24 to 20. However, while there are several similarities in these accounts, the Bible provides details to show us that these are two separate accounts. Remember, similarity does not necessarily equal sameness. In this particular case, we know the name of the grandfather of Zechariah, the son of Berechiah. Jesus referred to the prophet whose prophecies have been preserved for us in the book of Zechariah. The first verse of that book states, in the 8th month of the 2nd year of Darius, the word of the Lord came to Zechariah, son of Berechiah, son of Iddo, the prophet. So the man to whom Jesus referred to was the grandson of a man named Iddo, not Jehodiah, and his ministry as a prophet began in the 2nd year of Darius. This places the start of Zechariah's ministry around 520 BC. The events in 2 Chronicles 24 took place during the latter years of the reign of Joash, king of Judah. This means that Zechariah, the son of Jehoiada, lived roughly 3 centuries earlier than the son of Berechiah. So the solution to this supposed contradiction is that Jesus did not refer to the events of 2 Chronicles 24. Instead, he was speaking about the murder of Zechariah the prophet, the son of Berechiah, the son of Iddo. This makes sense in light of the context. Jesus told the scribes and the Pharisees that they were guilty of all the righteous blood that had been shed on earth, from the righteous blood of Abel to the blood of Zechariah, Matthew 23:35. Abel was the first person to be murdered, and both Jesus and the writer of Hebrews identify him as righteous, Hebrews 11:4. Zechariah, the son of Berechiah, lived near the end of the Old Testament. By citing the first and last martyrs of the Old Testament, Jesus essentially assigned the guilt of the murder of every prophet to the scribes and Pharisees. If he had referred to Zechariah, the son of Jehodiah, then Jesus would have missed out on another 300 years of history in which several prophets were martyred. Once again, we see that there is no contradiction. We just need to dig a little deeper to find the solution, unquote. And I must say, this is a very satisfactory conclusion that the fellow has come to, and I'll link to that article. But in the meantime, let's take a look at the rest of his points.
Inspired, huh? Actually, all this explains what Paul was trying to say in 2 Timothy 3:16. That all of Scripture is God-breathed, that it's useful for teaching, rebuking, correcting, and training in righteousness. Being that when Paul was speaking these words, there was no New Testament, so he could only have been referring to God's holy Torah. I'll give you some more.
While it does refer to the Old Testament in the context of the passage, it can be extended in principle to the New Testament, in light of the fact that Christians regard the New Testament as Scripture. But let's go with the interpretation that Rabbi Asher Meza has given for the sake of argument. If he wants to go that route, that's fine. Yeah, the Tanakh, the Christians will accept as inspired. But as I've demonstrated in these videos, with the exception of one objection which I may address in an addendum if the Lord wills, we demonstrated that the objections brought by Asher Meza really have no weight.
Hebrew chapter 10 verse 5 states, therefore when Christ came into the world, he said, sacrifice and offering you did not desire, but a body you prepared for me. Now, what he was trying to quote was Psalm chapter 40 verse 6, which states, sacrifices and offerings you did not desire, but my ears you have opened for me. How can you distort the Jewish Bible? My friend.
And this is once again where the Assyrian Encyclopedia comes in handy indeed. This is what he says in his article which he has written on this issue. Quote, here is what the author of Hebrews wrote. Consequently, when Christ came into the world, he said, sacrifices and offerings thou hast not desired, but a body thou hast now prepared for me, in burnt offerings and sin offerings thou hast taken no pleasure. Then I said, Lo, I have come to do thy will, O God, as it is written of me in the roll of the book. When he said above, thou hast neither desired nor taken pleasure in sacrifices and offerings and burnt offerings and sin offerings, these offered according to the law. Then he added, Lo, I have come to do thy will. He abolishes the first in order to establish the second. Hebrews 10:5-10. When we read the particular psalm that the author quoted, we do find that there is indeed a variant reading. Sacrifice and offering thou dost not desire, but thou hast given me an open ear. Burnt offering and sin offering thou hast not required. Then I said, Lo, I come in the roll of the book. It is written of me. I delight to do thy will. O my God, thy law is within my heart. Psalm 40:6-8. On this basis, it is assumed that the author deliberately tampered with the text to suit his theological agenda. What this question fails to consider is that the New Testament authors often quoted a couple of Old Testament text types that are at variance with the standard Hebrew Masoretic text. In fact, New Testament authors at times quote a more ancient form of the text than the later Masoretic version, which can be seen from a comparison with the Dead Sea Scrolls and the Septuagint, LXX, the Greek translation of the Hebrew Bible. These two texts often agree with each other in certain readings over against those found in the later Hebrew version. One must therefore exercise caution before assuming the New Testament is corrupting or quoting from an inaccurate version of the Hebrew text solely because their citations differ from those found within the Masoretic version. In this case, it seems the author cited an older form of the text, one found in the Septuagint version of the Old Testament scriptures. Sacrifice and offering thou wouldest not, but a body hast thou prepared for me. Whole burnt offering and sacrifice for sin thou didst not require. Thus, the Septuagint serves as a witness to an older reading of the Psalms, which contain the word body as opposed to that found in certain Hebrew versions. Yet, the fact of the matter is that the great majority of these variants are inconsequential, of no real significance, and can be easily reconciled. None of these variants affect any essential doctrine of the Christian faith. These references actually help to illustrate this point clearly. A careful reading of these two specific variants help clarify one another and in no way contradict the point being made by the inspired author of Hebrews, unquote. And I'm happy to link to the article so you can get more information on this particular subject. Now, he has done a second part to his whole so-called refutation of the New Testament, but that's for another time, and if it's in the Lord's will for me to carry on with the refutation of the arguments presented. But I think we've demonstrated so far in these videos that most of, if not all but one, of Asher Meza's objections have been refuted. And I hope to respond to the Psalm quotation where it mentions the zeal of the zeal for your house has consumed me. I hope to respond to that in an addendum to this video, or the set of videos. I hope that these videos responding to Asher Meza have been a blessing to you guys, and I appreciate and thank you for taking the time to watch.